Well, everyone, the iPhone 15 Plus is one of those iPhones that came out just a little bit over a year ago. So let's go and see how this particular iPhone holds up in 2025 and see if it's still worth buying, seeing if there's any competition that might be better than this particular device. And we'll take a look at some other things throughout this whole entire video as well. First of all, if you want to pick up this phone or some other phones that I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the iPhone 15 Plus, this particular phone on the front side is giving you a massive 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, the thing within this particular panel is that it is a pretty good looking panel when it comes down to it. This type of device still looks pretty good. The only thing within this particular device, as you could probably imagine, is that it is a little bit of it's not supposed to be better than the iPhone 15 Pro Max that came out around the same time, but it is still a very good looking device when it comes down to it. You have the dynamic island at the very top, pretty thin bezels all throughout, which that in and of itself is another really cool thing. And definitely when I'm looking at this type of device, I definitely do think it looks pretty good. I don't have that much to complain about here. Some of my favorite things with this phone too is that I am getting a USB Type-C port on the bottom, and that in and of itself is another amazing thing to have. I love having USB Type-C, and that is without a doubt, again, one of my most favorite things to basically have inside of this device when it comes down to it. You're getting flat sides throughout this particular phone. On the back side, you're getting your frosted glass back, which that in and of itself, once again, is another really nice thing to have. As always, I love having frosted glass backs, and this phone is going to be giving you that type of capability. You're getting a dual camera setup on the back side. You're getting your MagSafe capability as well. And overall, I'm a fan of the way this phone looks and holds up. It looks like a pretty good phone. It holds up fairly well. Like, there's not really too many things to complain about here for the most part. However, as you could probably imagine, there are some things to kind of think about within this type of device and how it somewhat kind of compares against some of the competition nowadays. So this phone, like I said, is a little bit over a year old. However, there is a very interesting thing going on here. So with the iPhone 15 Plus, this phone is already missing out on a few things. One, it's missing out on a 120Hz display. Unfortunately, this device does not give you that 120Hz display inside of this type of phone. That is kind of a disadvantage here. Like, it would have been really nice to basically have that type of capability here. It isn't, I don't know why these manufacturers don't do it, like why Apple didn't do it here. Almost every other phone over $500 nowadays has 120Hz. So it is really weird that this phone didn't give you that. On top of that, there's not really like a triple camera setup on the backside, and there's not really reverse wireless charging. Samsung phones have it, Google Pixels have it, no iPhones have it, and this iPhone also did not have it at that time. They have reverse wire charging, but not reverse wireless charging. So overall, from the outside, that's kind of how this phone somewhat holds up from that particular perspective when it comes down to it. Now, on top of that, when it comes down to the price tag, this particular phone is costing about $540-ish as of this point. So if you're going to go on Amazon for the cheapest prices, I can see that basically this thing is about $540, which isn't like a super expensive price to pay. That's significantly less than what it was when it originally came out, I think at $899 or $829. But even beyond that, it's still like a very, very good price to pay because you're still getting a pretty fast phone. And if you're able to get this thing for that price, that is significantly cheaper than what it was when it originally came out. So that right there, that's another very big asset for this type of device as well. Now, when it does come down to its price tag, the cameras, not the price tag, we already talked about that. When it comes down to the cameras, this phone is basically giving you that dual camera setup on the backside. So it's a 48 megapixel wide angle camera and a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. So just that in and of itself, that is a pretty decent type of layout to have inside of a device, right? It's like not terrible. It's pretty much what we've experienced with the most other iPhones. You're getting a 12 megapixel wide angle camera on the front. Now you're still able to do 4K at 60 on the front of the back, which that in and of itself is a very nice thing to have. Being able to, get this type of camera and that type of layout, it is a very nice thing, right? It's not perfect, but as I mentioned before, it does get the job done. And I think if you're going to go through and get a camera and have it, just basically use it on an everyday basis, this thing is more than good enough, right? This thing is a very good camera, and you're really not going to run into too many problems here. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind. If you're somebody who does plan on zooming in a lot inside of your camera like all the time, well, this camera may not be the best for you. Like, it still zooms in and, you still have a good camera there, but compared to some of the newest competition, those newer phones like the iPhone 16 Pro or 15 Pro can definitely zoom in more, so keep that in mind. But otherwise, this camera is still very good. I don't really feel myself missing out on anything when I'm using it. So that right there is one of those big things to keep in mind there as well. On top of that, when it comes down to the software longevity, this is also one of those big things to keep in mind here as well. So this phone, like I mentioned, it's still supported with software and it's probably still going to be supported with software for many, many years from now. So this phone isn't really going anywhere anytime soon. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Like you can go through and buy this phone and you're not really going to feel like you're missing out on a phone for years and years and years now. So I think that's a really nice thing. But really the only thing I would even kind of recommend telling you is that if you are wanting a phone that's going to last longer, the iPhone 16s have a higher likelihood of lasting longer than the iPhone 15 Plus. But even at that point, it's really not that big of a deal. And I feel like this phone is still giving you like a pretty good experience when it comes down to that side as well. On top of that, when you come down to the battery life side, this phone is still giving you a 4,383 mAh battery. That is a massive size battery to have inside of a phone. If you're going to go through and pick up a device, like this is without a doubt a really big size battery inside of this type of phone. So I do think once again, that is a really cool thing to kind of think about within this type of device, because you're able to go ahead and pick it up and you're able to get a device that still lasts for, a long period of time, not only in terms of software, but in terms of the battery life as well. So it's another really big thing to keep in mind here. And finally, when it comes down to the performance, this device is still giving you the Apple A16 Bionic chip inside of it with 6 gigabytes of RAM. And as I mentioned before, if you're going to go through and you're getting really any phone out there, as long as it's been out in the last 2-3 years, you're going to still get a pretty good performing phone, to be honest. So this phone is not terrible, but it's a really, really good performing device. There's a few things to keep in mind here within this device so that might throw you off a little bit. Number one is if you are wanting a device with Apple Intelligence, this device only having 6 gigabytes of RAM is not going to be giving you that type of capability, but still the performance and the experience that you're going to have within this phone is still going to be very good. I still feel like I'm getting a very fast phone whenever I'm using this type of device. Any games that load up inside of this thing perform well, any applications I use, really anything across the board, it's still actually pretty sick. So from that side too, I don't really run into too many problems when it comes down to that side. So overall, to be completely honest with you, I think the iPhone 15 Plus, it's a very good iPhone. It's giving you very good build quality, very good performance. The only thing with this type of device though, is that if you are able to buy a used iPhone, if you're comfortable buying a used iPhone, I think an iPhone 15 Pro is only slightly more expensive than this thing in the used market. And I'd rather recommend you to go ahead and buy one of those phones than this one. I think this phone is still good and it's great and everything, but a phone like a 15 Pro for only being a little bit more expensive is definitely worth it to go and upgrade to. You're getting a way better display, way better camera. I feel like if I bought the 15 Plus, I would want a new phone in 2 years. But if I bought a 15 Pro, I feel like I could use that phone for 4 to 5 years still, to be honest. So that's kind of how I see the iPhone 15 Plus holding up in this particular year. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, till then.